Orlovsky. Commanders, Eagles, what is your first impression?
How'd the Eagles start this football game? Make no mistake about it. Last week against the terrible Dallas Cowboys, it was 7-6 with 28 seconds left in the first half. The Eagles have scored 30 points on 24 first-quarter drives. The only team that's worse in the NFL this year, the Chicago Bears. I want to see how the Philadelphia Eagles start this football game tonight and see if they can jump on top of the Washington Commanders.
So your first impression is quite literally the first impression. Yes. Can they start this thing quickly tonight? And, of course, we have Shefty with us, as we do on every Thursday. Let's go through the notebook because there's a lot of significant injury news going into this game.
Well, we're going to start with the injuries here, and you look at some key moves here. The Commanders are not going to have Marshawn Lattimore, who they acquired at the trade deadline. He's already been ruled out. His Washington debut will wait another week. Brian Robinson cleared to play tonight off the injury report, and that is big news for Washington's ground game. Jordan Mailata was activated off injured reserve yesterday, had missed the last 4 games with a hamstring injury, and both Eagles wide receivers, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, off the injury report despite any limited practice for Devontae Smith. Both will be good to go tonight. So the Eagles get back their receivers, they get back their starting left tackle, and the Commanders are still waiting to get their Pro Bowl cornerback.
Again, and Marshawn Lattimore brought here in part for that reason, maybe for a night like tonight against A.J. Brown. And Dan, you have some tape. A.J. Brown is going to be a problem.
Yeah, if Washington plays A.J. Brown one-on-one, you're going to lose the game. It's that simple. And last week, just because Pittsburgh didn't hit all the shots didn't mean that you didn't give him the opportunity to throw them. And I think that it's a very simple thought process for Philadelphia. If they shrink A.J.'s split down, meaning get him closer to that offensive tackle, they're creating the space for a reason. They want A.J. with off coverage. He's just going to run that out route. This is easy for Jalen Hurts. 1, 2, 3. Ball comes out. Here's 13 yards, Philadelphia. And then when they have him extended, it's one of 2 things, really. They're trying to run his in route, which his route running is great. At the top, you're just going to see a little bit of a stutter, freeze that one-on-one corner, and then comes that in breaker. And then again, if you put him by himself and you line, I don't care who the corner is, one-on-one, Philadelphia is going to take their shot deep. And I know Russell Wilson's thrown the ball incredibly well deep this year. So is Jalen Hurts, okay? He's just going to run a go route. And if you're going to give them the opportunity to consistently take those shots, they're going to do it tonight. I don't think Washington can just line up with the corner, whether press or deep, and think that you're going to stop that connection, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown.
So you have an eye on A.J. Brown tonight. He's the receiver. And interestingly, our receiver doesn't have an eye on a receiver, but someone else for the Eagles offense.
Yeah, it's Saquon Barkley, and that's who the offense goes through. And that's the bind that you're in, right, when you're facing this offense of Philadelphia. Are you going to leave A.J. Brown one-on-one with your corners? But if you play too high safety, they're going to take advantage of you and run the football, right? We know the Washington Commanders, they're 28th in stopping the run right now. That's not good. Can you win the line of scrimmage versus the offensive line of Philly? Can you dictate what you want to happen versus the Philadelphia Eagles dictating to you what they're going to do?
I'm sorry, I get distracted every time I see this. I can't not watch it. You know, J-Mac, before we get to the other side of the ball, as I listen to Dan talk and I listen to Harry talk, the thought just enters my mind. And we like the Eagles, if they're on, are pretty close to unstoppable. He's saying you're going to have to do something about A.J. Brown, and he's saying you're going to have to do something about Saquon Barkley, and they're obviously both right. What do you do if this Eagles team is humming?
The funny thing, as you're saying that, nobody mentioned Devontae Smith yet either, so you got to find a way to defend those guys. Listen, the Washington Commanders have had a lot of success doing what they're doing. You mentioned the man-to-man piece of it. That's what they do. They run man-to-man 7th or 8th most in the NFL. You have to find a way, though, to mix it up. Get after the quarterback up front, but you're going to have to play a little bit more 2 safety high and take away those big plays. And you're going to have to put it on Deron Payne up front and Newton up front to get off blocks to be able to stop Saquon Barkley. If the ball's going over your head, you have no chance.
All right. I am so excited for this game. Man, I don't know about you. I like when divisions are close. I like entertainment. It's not fun to me to watch teams just blow divisions out and these games. For the longest time, who really cares about the Eagles versus the Commanders, the Eagles versus the Giants? I mean, really the only division game in the East that was worth watching was Eagles-Cowboys. Who wants to watch the Cowboys versus the Commanders, the Cowboys versus the Giants versus the Commanders? I mean, that for the longest time, that was the most skippable game. I mean, it just was. And so now it's like the Commanders have some hype. Obviously, the Eagles have some hype. Like, we finally got some exciting divisional games back in the NFC East, and I'm all for it. I really, really am. I love it. I think it's just so much more fun. when we have great teams playing each other and giving us great games. Look at the Bengals versus the Ravens. I mean, those games are just as exciting as it gets. So this game is going to be awesome. It's so awesome to be able to have these two great teams back facing each other where there's actual stakes involved. I mean, last year there was the games were close between the Eagles and the Commanders, but like there was no, what were the stakes for the Commanders? None. This year there's stakes. I mean, look at this. Washington 61% chance to win the NFC East with a win, 18% with a loss. So like this game means a ton now, a ton. It really gives you that leg up, no doubt about it. So this game is just going to be awesome. And that's the thing, right? They're going through, they're like, oh, what are you going to do about AJ? What are you going to do about Saquon? What are you going to do about Devontae and Dallas Goedert? And it's like, and then Jalen Hurts, like obviously he's the quarterback, so he was mentioned, but like they're not talking about what Jalen Hurts can actually do, especially with his legs as well. So I think the Philadelphia Eagles are in a great place for this game. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they contain Jaden Daniels. Vic Fangio, obviously an incredibly an incredibly experienced, talented defensive mind, and you typically those types of coaches do very well against rookie quarterbacks. They just know how to play them. They know how to exploit their weaknesses and minimize their strengths. So I'm really fascinated to see how Vic Fangio handles Jaden Daniels and what the Washington Commanders want to do offensively. With that said, although I think the Eagles without a doubt have the leg up in terms of experience and roster, many of these guys have literally gone to a Super Bowl. That alone is obviously a massive leg up. So we know the talent that the Eagles have, but the one benefit that the Washington Commanders really have more than anything, more than like a really exciting young dynamic quarterback and Terry McLaurin also, balling out as well, is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is obviously going to know this Eagles team very, very deeply. The Dallas Cowboys, at least defensively, have played the Eagles pretty well over the years, and Dan Quinn was leading that charge. I do believe that Dan Quinn is a great defensive coach. Now, do the Washington Commanders have the pieces just yet? That remains to be seen, but I do think Dan Quinn's going to understand who Jalen Hurts is. He will also understand how to try his best to limit Jalen Hurts, and they're going to have a concrete game plan that they know puts them in the best position to win this game. So I'm really, really excited to see that. But then it's also interesting because then you got Kellen Moore, and Kellen Moore is going to be familiar with Dan Quinn. So we got two ex-Dallas Cowboys coordinators, offense, defense, going against each other. I mean, like, that honestly is pretty cool. Now that adds another interesting layer to this game that I think makes it a little bit more unpredictable, quite frankly. I really, really do. I'm curious to see how that stands out. Any of the conversations that maybe Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn have had over the years, and again, facing each other in practices and just watching each other so much, watching the games and the various iterations of their teams unfold. It's just going to be interesting. There's little things that you pick up sometimes in that type of situation, and it may have no effect on the game at all, right? It may just be completely irrelevant, but it will be interesting. But I do think that what I am confident about is that Dan Quinn's knowledge of the Philadelphia Eagles will help the Washington Commanders. Will it be enough for them to be able to win the game? Obviously, I have no idea. No one knows. But it will absolutely something that the Philadelphia Eagles do need to think about. But at the same time, Saquon Barkley has not been part of the Philadelphia Eagles for any year that Dan Quinn has when he was part of Dallas and facing the Eagles. So that honestly is the biggest Weapon X right there. But man, this game's so great. Standalone game, Thursday night. Which is actually pretty interesting considering not many people really thought that the Commanders were going to be anything. And so this game easily could have just been like, okay, yeah, the Eagles are going to win this game. And, it's going to be 21-10 by the middle of the third quarter. And you could already start to I don't know what else is on TV. So this feels like this game will come down to the wire. I am excited to see. I'm not as concerned about the Eagles' slow start necessarily. Yeah, you obviously want your team to start off hot, like Dan Orlovsky's trying to say, but their numbers skyrocket after that first quarter, after the first couple of drives. They're one of the lowest in the NFL, and then they become one of the highest in the NFL. you know, it is what it is. It's kind of like everyone gives the benefit of the doubt to the Kansas City Chiefs and say, well, hey, they're always down going into, you know, they're always trailing in this game, but they always find a way to win. Well, and then you could say the same thing for the Philadelphia Eagles. And you can't say, well, the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, they've had a lot of success. So have the Philadelphia Eagles. I understand they're not winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl, but they've obviously had a tremendous amount of success. So again, just like you would like, if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, you would like them to not be down in majority of the games. Same thing with the Eagles. You'd like them to be able to get off to a better start, of course. But if they're continuing to find a way to get that offense going and do exactly what they want to do, well, then you know what? That honestly will be good enough for me in a lot of ways. So, yeah, this will probably be the best team that the Philadelphia Eagles have faced for the most part. I mean, I think the Bengals are significantly better than people give them credit for, but I think, and obviously the Eagles handled that, but I think the Falcons were kind of a toss-up. The Bucks are, you know, the Eagles were so injured. I mean, I'm just obviously not the Giants, the Browns. There's just not a lot of great teams necessarily that the Eagles have faced, and I'm not saying that the Eagles have, you know, have only beaten bad teams. That's not where I'm going with this, but this definitely will be probably the most dynamic team that they faced, and the team that can offer the most potent punch and the most they can be the most disruptive that they've faced. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles handle that. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Philadelphia Eagles over the Commanders? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.